After the shoot-down of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17, an official and unofficial Russian unwillingness to do anything constructive to stop the violence, relations between Moscow and Washington have reached Cold War levels. And that is according to Democratic California Senator and Chair of the Senate Select Intelligence Committee, Dianne Feinstein. So are we in a new Cold War with a resurgent Russia? And if so, where do we go from here? I'm Steve Green, and here to answer those questions, your trifecta stalwarts, Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. Gents, before we go to the questions, let's hear it from Senator Feinstein talking to CNN's Candy Crowley on Sunday.
I've got less than a minute, so I just need a yes or a no.
Sure.
Do you believe that the U.S.-Russian relations are now at Cold War levels?
Yes.
Not much room for debate there, but Bill, surely this isn't a new Cold War. I mean, the 8th Guards Army doesn't threaten the Fulda Gap. NATO extends right to the borders of the old Soviet Union, and we're the ones in Afghanistan. Are things really as bad as Feinstein says?
Well, first thing I have to say is it is almost inconceivable to me to watch that clip and just to feel the raw, naked irony of the woman who basically cost Mitt Romney the election by pulling Barack Obama off the ropes in the foreign policy debate, asking if we're now facing another Cold War with the Russians, when she, among everybody else in the media, mocked Mitt Romney mercilessly for saying that Russia was our #1 geopolitical enemy. It's absolutely astonishing that that person can get up and face herself every day and go to work. I don't know how she does it, honestly. I really don't. The second thing I'll say about a new Cold War, Steve, is, you know, that old saw about generals. Generals always preparing to fight the last war. I do think we're in a new Cold War, but I don't think the new Cold War looks like the old Cold War. Things have changed fundamentally. We've entered the information age. Now, instead of worrying about 8,000 Soviet tanks pouring through the Fulda Gap in 1988, now we have to start worrying about cyber warfare. We have to start worrying about things like potential EMP attacks. We have to start worrying about things of an entirely new nature, products of the information age. One of the reasons we have to start worrying about these things is because as a result of the Cold War, the United States military has gotten extraordinarily good at fighting what we thought was going to be World War III. In other words, taking out huge masses of tanks. There's nothing the U.S. Air Force, Navy, and Army, not to mention the Marines, would like better than to see a battlefield with 9,000 tanks on it. It'd be fun for them. So, yes, we have to worry about a new chill. And, of course, while there are no longer 25,000 nuclear weapons aimed at this country, there's probably 1,500. And as most of you probably can figure out, 1,500 nuclear weapons can make for a bad day.
Yeah, that's still plenty to make the rubble bounce, as we used to say back in the bad old days of the first Cold War. Now, the president responded forcefully on Monday, and we have that clip for you, too. Here it is.
My preference continues to be finding a diplomatic resolution within Ukraine. I believe that can still happen. That is my preference today, and it will continue to be my preference. But if Russia continues to violate Ukraine's sovereignty and to back these separatists, and these separatists become more and more dangerous and now are risks not simply to the people inside of Ukraine, but the broader international community, then Russia will only further isolate itself from the international community, and the costs for Russia's behavior will only continue to increase.
Steve, before you go on, I just got to say something about this. I know I'm almost out of my state-allotted free speech time here, but do you notice he did it again? Did you notice how it's always, I have decided it would be my preference, it's in my interest, I would like. Doesn't anybody understand that just by using this language, it's telegraphing to the Russians that we are dealing with the individual whims of an individual person? Could he not have said it as the United States policy that? If we start dealing with national policies, all of a sudden people start taking us a little more seriously, I think.
Well, the state is me, as a certain Frenchman put it.
There you go.
But, you know, in French. Scott, President Obama says Russia is isolating itself from the world community. British Prime Minister David Cameron is calling for tough sanctions. Even the Dutch are howling that something has to be done. So is the West finally standing together and firm again?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I think in that whole clip there, what I saw was a man drawing a red line, an uncrossable red line, something that if they should cross this red line, horrible consequences would ensue. You know, the reason why we're not starting another Cold War, in my opinion, is because there is no opposition in the U.S. government to Russian hegemony over as much territory as, frankly, they wish to have. And so you can't have a Cold War when there's no moral opponent. And we have no moral opponent. We have somebody, you know, who pats a Russian guy on the knee and says, hey, after the election, I'll have a little bit more flexibility. And then they relay that information to Vladimir, and everything's going to be okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, I would just add that the important word in what Scott said there is moral. Folks, things aren't Cold War bad, but they are bad. But what Russia needs isn't another stern lecture about international norms or international disapproval or more sanctions its crony billionaires will slip past, which Putin will laugh at. But there are concrete actions we could take right now which would make Putin think twice about Russia's actions in Ukraine. First, we could reverse course and deploy missile defense radars and missiles to Poland and the Czech Republic, as we had planned to do before Hillary Clinton's famous reset with Moscow a few years ago. Second, open federal lands to oil fracking and make American crude oil available for export. And third, reimpose full sanctions on Iran and exclude Russia from any further negotiations over Iran's nuclear program. So you emasculate Putin's nuclear missile building program, undercut the energy exports his treasury relies on, and isolate his key ally, making things so difficult for us in the Middle East.
Easy.
Or, you know, the president could just make another statement before jetting off to Martha's for another well-deserved break from absolutely nothing. For Scott Ott and Bill Whittle, I'm Steve Green.